Well, good morning, everybody, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this final round of debate in the selection process for the 2019 Afghan Youth Representative to the United Nations. And I would like especially to welcome the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General to Afghanistan, Tadamichi Yamamoto, Deputy Foreign Minister Idris Zaman, and the Executive Director of Afghan Progressive Thinking, Sofia Ramyar, the real driving force behind this great event. The three of them will join me in the jury for this final selection later on. I'm happy to see that so many of you, students, teachers, professors, civil society, representatives of the media, young leaders of today and tomorrow, I hope, have joined us for this event. And above all, of course, I would like to warmly welcome the three key individuals of today's event, the three final candidates who will be introduced to you later. Ladies and gentlemen, this year the event is jointly organized, hosted by the Afghan for Progressive Thinking, APT, and the German Embassy in Kabul. APT is the largest youth-led national organization in Afghanistan. For the past 9 years, it has worked to promote peace and critical thinking among youth and children in Afghanistan and to empower youth. It runs debate and leadership development programs, organizes exposure trips for youth within Afghanistan and abroad, and advocates through publications and public events. And it even runs an elementary school for displaced children. APT has worked tirelessly to put the concerns of youth on the political agenda and successfully contributed to lobbying for the passing of the UN Security Council Resolution 2250 in December 2015, which calls for a stronger role of youth in promoting international peace and security. And it is this Resolution 2250 that gives our event today its meaning, since it provides the opportunity to let a representative of the youth of Afghanistan speak in front of the Security Council of the United Nations and to publicly address the concerns and grievances of the youth in this country. Last year, the Embassy of the Netherlands, and I'm happy that my colleague, the Dutch ambassador, is here with us today, the then member of the United Nations Security Council, partnered with APT to jointly select the first ever Afghan youth representative to speak in front of the UN in this role. In a process similar to this year's process, supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and UNAMA, Ramiz Bakhtiar, I don't know whether he's with us today. No, he's not able. He was chosen from about 60 great applicants to be the first Afghan youth representative. His speech left a lasting impression in the UN. Sadly, as I said, he cannot be with us today. This year, since Germany joined the UN Security Council for the 2-year period 2019-2020, we were happy to take over this coordinating role from our Dutch colleagues in partnering with APT to select the Afghan youth representative for 2019. This task has only become more challenging since after the great success of last year's event and the great performance of Ramiz Bakhtiar, we have had hundreds of applicants this year. So today, after several competitive rounds of selection, we have reached the final stage with only 3 candidates left, one of whom will go to speak at the United Nations later this year. Before that, she or he will participate in a number of events to meet with diverse youth from all over Afghanistan, and she will attend the National Youth Jirga, an event to bring youth from 34 provinces together for 3 days in order to truly represent the youth of the whole country when speaking in front of the UN Security Council. As I mentioned on the jury today, I will be joined by Tadamichi, UN Secretary, Special Representative, Idris Saman, Deputy Foreign Minister, and of course, Sofia Ramia from APT. However, before we hear the candidates debate on the question of what are the red lines in peace negotiations, I'm sure you are as patient as I am to hear those speeches. Allow me just a few words of thanks. A heartfelt thanks to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as to UNAMA for their continued public support to this initiative, and in particular, of course, to the both of you, Tadamichi and Idris, for personally joining today's jury. Finally, I would like to thank Feroz Bashari, Director of the Government Media and Information Center, as well as his entire team for hosting this event in this fantastic venue. We are very happy to be able to do this here. And now it's my great pleasure, I think after a short translation, to hand over to Sofia, Executive Director of ATP, who is the driving force, I mentioned it again, but it cannot be said often enough, who is the driving force behind this program and who has made all this possible, who, by the way, is an inspiring voice for peace and has spoken with great success herself at the UN Security Council, and who will be leading us further through this event. So thank you, Sofia, for your commitment, your leadership. Thank you, all of you, for attending this event, for being with us, and you will also have the opportunity later on to put questions to our candidates. So I hope it will be a very active, interactive event. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the event.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sometimes we are told to choose between freedom and peace, between human rights and peace. We choose both, and we want both. We are the Afghan youth. حضار گرامی، جلالت مآب معین صاحب سیاسی وزارت محترم امور خارجه، جلالت مآب نماینده ویژه سکرتر جنرال سازمان ملل متحد برای افغانستان، جلالت مآب سفیر صاحب جمهوری آلمان در افغانستان، محصلان مستعد و مهمانان عالی قدر، به برنامه انتخاب دومین نماینده جوان افغان به سازمان ملل خوش آمدید. First, please allow me to express my gratitude on behalf of Afghans for Progressive Thinking to His Excellency Ambassador Peter Progel and the Embassy's team for a dedicated partnership and with us over the past few months. The Afghan Youth Representative to the United Nations is an important initiative, and selection process is very competitive. I thank the German Embassy for their patience and for their cooperation as we embark this journey to select the second Afghan Youth Representative this year. من به نمایندگی از دفتر اندیشوران از حمایت و همکاری وزارت محترم امور خارجه، مخصوصاً معینیت سیاسی و ریاست عمومی امور سازمان ملل متحد نهایت سپاسگزاری میکنم. جناب معین صاحب، کادرها و دیپلمات‌های شما که در جمعشان خانم‌های مستعد و توانا هستند، باعث افتخار مسئولین و جوانان افغانستان هستند. شما الگوی نسل فیلی ما هستید و ما از رهبریت شما قدردانی میکنیم. We appreciate GMIC for their partnership and providing today's venue. This event allow us, and this place allow us to invite VIP and distinguished guests like yourselves today. I also want to thank UNAMA and the support of His Excellency SRSG Tadamichi Yamamoto and his office to this program. Mr. Ambassador, last year, together with you and with the Netherlands Embassy, we selected the first ever Afghan youth representative. I want to assure you and all of us here that this process will continue and we will sustain it. Today's event to select the second Afghan youth representative is a testament to our dedication to this important initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, Afghans for Progressive Thinking widely known as APT, was founded 9 years ago on the belief that Afghan youth are active contributor to peace, security, and development of Afghanistan. We challenge the belief that youth are merely recipients of help, victims, and passive citizens. Today, APT's 30,000 alumni and network are turning into a powerful network of Afghan youth who are in the government, in the business, and in the civil society, making change happen. Similarly, we are becoming an influential organization in the global efforts for peace and peaceful cohabitation. APT, as the youth organization from Afghanistan and as a leading organization among a network of over 75 organizations from 60 countries under the auspices of the United Network of Young Peace Builders, we work on an advocacy plan until the Resolution 2250 was adopted by Security Council. This resolution emphasis on youth's participation in the policy-making decisions. Yes, Afghan youth played a key role to get this resolution adopted in 2015, and we have implemented this since then. حضار گرامی، از شما دعوت می نمایم که صحبت‌های کاندیدای دور نهایی رقابت برای کسب لقب و مسئولیت دومین نماینده جوان افغان برای سازمان ملل دقیق بشنوید. این یک مقام مسئولیت بسیار بزرگ است. شخص برنده برای 1 سال برای جوانان ما ابتکار آفرینی می کند. صدای واضح و واقعی شما در استیج‌های بین المللی می باشد. و این شخص افغانستان را باید نسبت به هر جای دیگر بیشتر دوست داشته باشد. شما با ما یک جای قضاوت نمایید و مباحث کاندیدا را از لحاظ منطق، محتوا و نحو بیان ارزیابی نمایید. And this is my message to the Afghan youth representative. When you're at the UN, please convey to the world leaders that we want an end to war now. And we want both. Both. We want peace and human rights. We want peace and freedom. And also, we want both peace and youth on the rise. من صحبت‌های خود را همینجا خاتمه میدم و از همه شما تشکر میکنم. Thank you so much.
In February 25, the first round of the peace negotiations with Taliban, initiated by the United States of America, took place in Doha, Qatar, which spiked the hopes for a sustainable peace among all Afghans and all around the country. But all of a sudden, the 9 months of peace efforts seemed to be in vain, with the US government called off the peace negotiations. With the cancellation of peace negotiations, ladies and gentlemen, Afghanistan is now standing on the verge of a very critical situation, because the cancellation of peace process left the situation and the future of war in Afghanistan in question. Now, the situation has gone from bad to worse, with the civilian casualties jumped into more than 3,000 civilians, an 11% increase compared to the years before, including almost 1,000 children, which is a very serious humanitarian crisis that could only be ended through a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire. However, many Afghans have constantly criticized the peace process because basically it excluded the Afghan government and in general all Afghan people. And we had no clue what decisions have been decided about our future. And the negotiations were taking place in secrecy. But with the cancellation of the peace process, all Afghan people felt and disappointed and shocked. While there is still a possibility to restart and revive the dead peace negotiations with Taliban, we would like to remind all parties into the conflict to recognize the need for inclusivity and recognize the need to participate the public perception and recognize the public perception. And because this is important, and before deciding anything on behalf of the whole Afghan nation, it's important to recognize the public perception. Afghan people from all across Afghanistan, in the Peace Loyal Jirga, Afghan Women's National Consensus for Peace, and with the social media campaign with the hashtag of my red line, have raised their voices and voiced their concerns about their future and asked the global community and asked the parties into the conflict to recognize their limits and their red lines, and to recognize their limits and their red lines and respect and protect them in any possible peace deal. Our red lines might be different as individuals, but as a nation, our red line is Afghan people's achievements that has been gained over the past 18 years. In particular, our constitution, freedom of speech, our democratic institutions, human rights, and women's rights. One of our most important desire and one of our most important requests from the parties into the conflict is, in order to implement and protect and respect these red lines, we need intra-Afghan talks. We need a permanent ceasefire and a meaningful participation of representatives of women, youth, and the civil society in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, one of our most prominent achievements over the past 18 years is a transformed Afghanistan that is able to give space and accommodate women in the society. The reason why I would like to focus on women today is because they were the main victims over the years of war in Afghanistan, and they will lose the most if a peace deal does not include provisions to protect their rights and achievements. Afghan women back then were deprived of their basic human rights. They were banned from going to school. They were banned from participating in social activities, and even banned from existing. But today, in Afghanistan, women are represented in art, culture, education, economics, sport, and even in military service. And this is a big transformation. But beside all these, we shall not forget those women who live in the remote areas, those women who live under the Taliban's control. The story for them is different. The fight for their rights backseat for their struggle to survival. They suffer from the violence at the hand of Taliban and the late-night airstrikes at the same time. So peace and security is a priority for them. And while fighting for the women's right, we have to consider their right for life, and we have to fight for them as well. But all Afghan women's consensus for their red line and the peace is the same. We want a peace, the one that preserves the last 18 years' achievements, the one that does not compromise Afghan people's sacrifices for freedom of speech, for democracy and women's rights. Ladies and gentlemen, the 4 decades long war had a very heavy toll on civilians. Our country lost its finest ones, and many families lost their beloved ones. And this time, we do not want a shift in the ship of conflict. We want a real peace and an ending point to the grievances and miseries of Afghan people. For history, our future and fate have always been shaped and decided by the warring parties. But this time, we want to remind the global community that we have a strong, educated, and committed generation that is ready to shape their future and the future of the next generation with their own hands, that deserve a seat and a voice on the negotiating table. And we want them to recognize that despite our desperation for peace and security, we have all come a long way since 2001, and going back is not an option for us. Thank you very much.
If you cut this, I will vote with this one. And if you cut this, I will go with the third one. These are not my words. These are the words of Safiullah, a victim whose finger was cut by Taliban because he voted. He adds, quote, "I knew it was a painful experience, but it was only a finger. But when it is about the future of my children and my country, I will not sit back, even if they cut off my whole hand." Ladies and gentlemen, we all have contributed and sacrificed for peace one way or the other way. But how can we achieve an inclusive and sustainable peace? Why do a lot of our people hate terroristic groups such as Taliban? Is it because of insecurity, or is it because of violation of their rights and violation of their fundamental values? If it was because of insecurity, we had security in Taliban's period, but there was backlash and people stood against them, mainly because they were violating their rights and their fundamental values. Today, we would like to determine 3 fundamental red lines in our peace negotiations. First, Islamic Republic system of governance and official recognition of the government of Afghanistan as a legitimate government by Taliban. Second, human rights. And third, stability of our national armies and our national flag. Let me elaborate on the first one. The Republic government will be as a main structure and as a main platform for all other privileges and rights that were mentioned by my colleague. If Republic government, we can practice these rights. But with Emirat, no one will be possible to be practiced in the system. Human rights, freedom of choice, political freedom, any other types of freedom, they will be only practiced and there will be a practical ground for them if we have got the proper Republic system. So we stand by it. But why this red line matters? Because in the Republic system, people go and vote, and the government is accountable and responsible for them. In the other case, when the people don't vote for anyone, there isn't any division of power, there isn't any parliament, and only one person will be the decision maker. The second fundamental red line would be human rights. In particular, the fundamental human rights. I am so much fortunate to say that Afghanistan has been one of the countries who have adopted 7 international resolutions on human rights. And we do have our commitment with the international community. We are obliged to support, practice, and advocate for human rights. And we are never ready to give it up. It is truly mentioned in Article 159 of our Constitution, and Article 22. The whole Chapter 2 of our Constitution focuses on the fundamental rights of our citizens. So we are never ready to compromise those major ones. The last red line we want to determine would be the stability of our national armies and our flag. Why this? We are never ready for a dissolution in our security forces' power. This is a dream for Taliban or for any other opposite group, and that is our red line. Why? Because we do not want Afghanistan to be again a safe haven for terroristic groups, and we do not want another 9/11 to happen. So we will progress the international support to our national army, we will have our cooperation with the international community, and of course, we will have our internal empowerments. I would like to conclude my speech by mentioning that how these red lines will lead us to a sustainable and inclusive peace. They will lead us because they have public support. You can watch the videos prepared by Farahnas Furutan, one of our great journalists, on the view and visions of our people. These are all what they want, and these are our red line. At the end, as a youth activist, I am super optimistic about the future of my country. But I would say that we should step in wisely, cautiously, and strategically in peace talks. And I would like to end my speech by a Romanian saying that a bad peace is worse than war. So let's step in for a wise, good, inclusive, and sustainable peace. Thank you very much.
Myself, I'm a youth activist, a social and political one. When I say social and political one, I really mean is social and political in a sense where I don't talk about peace in a sense when I'm privileged, when I go to the American university, or when I get to go freely outside. No. I talk about peace and social activism when I come from District Maruf, that is under war, from Kandahar, which is right now at war. I have 4,000 families as IDPs, internally displaced people, in Spin Boldak right now. So I come from that background, and I was recently there before 2 weeks to meet my people, to know what were their concerns. I know I might seem a little biased when I talk about my people, but they are Afghans, and we are all inclusively Afghans here. So today, if you read the New York Times in the morning, they published an article called Saleh Mahmoud. In that said, he's an ex-military officer. He says that Taliban and Afghans, we are the sons of one mother. Taliban is the son who is influenced by the neighbor, and he has gone bad. And we are the people who are still good, who still go by the rules, if you know what I mean. So if Taliban are coming back to the talk, to the table, if a father is bringing him back, which is the government, what are the red lines that we should have? Because father has an upper hand and they are the sons, so they don't have the upper hand. So for example, this is the red line that I have for them. But what is the actual red line? For me, coming from Maruf, for me, red line is access to my own lands that I don't have access right now. Do you know how much can we make from those lands in irrigation, in agriculture and crops? But we cannot access those lands. Why? Because of the spoiled son. Why I cannot vote in my own district? Because of the spoiled son. That is a red line. Access to my women's rights in my own district is our red line. Our red lines, when we come here, we talk about it, that is a red line for international community and for us. That is our red line. Access to right is, the vote is our right. Our constitutional rights are our red lines. We should realize this. Included schools are our red lines. We should know this. Apart from that, Afghan National Army is our red line. That is our honor. When they ask about it, that is questioning our honor. When they ask about constitutional rights, that is questioning our honor. When they ask about women's rights, when they ask about our exclusiveness, when it comes to education, when it comes to our women's rights, when it comes to our votes, it is our red line. How can they negotiate peace with us? Do you know what is the meaning of peace? Peace means access to security, access to human rights, and access to development. How come can we say that they are okay with everything that we can negotiate with it? They are not okay with development. They always destroy schools. We know that, right? They are not okay with human rights. They are always abusing, as my colleague said, cutting fingers. When they are voting, people are voting. And they are not okay with security anyways, right? But at the same time, they are controlling the 60% of the country as hostage and negotiating peace. We as young Afghans, we as traders, we as international community should realize that Afghans should not negotiate peace. Peace is not something that should be negotiated. That is one thing I have been talking about and nobody is listening because somehow everyone thinks that we can negotiate peace. Okay, let's keep the development, but let's give up on human rights. No, you cannot give up on human rights. That's not possible. Human rights are important. If you don't have human rights, you don't have an inclusive Afghanistan. My right to nationality, my right to Afghanistan, my right to that tazkira, my right on that tazkira that I vote for the president, that is my right. That is my red line. And if they cannot let me have that right, I don't want this peace. Nobody wants this peace, including the people in the rural areas. What kind of peace do they want? They want where they can select the president. They want a peace where they can access their lands. They want a peace where they can access just like maternal health. Do you know how many women die of postpartum hemorrhage in Helmand because of war? Because they cannot access actual medical clinics. Do you know how many girls are illiterate in Kandahar right now because they cannot access education? Those are our red lines. If we cannot talk, if we negotiate on those red lines, then we don't have an inclusive peace. Then we don't have an actual rights. And then we don't have an inclusive, what do we say, a religious faction who is holding country hostage and asking us for peace. I wouldn't say how much resolutions the UN has passed. I wouldn't say how much work the international community has done. I wouldn't say how much work the government has done. Because right now, we are at the state of war. The international community has helped us, but it always goes in vain. Why? Because people are not included. The rural people are not included. The urban people are not included. We have our grievances. Nobody is caring about the civilian casualties. Let's talk about civilian casualties. They are happening because of the pro and anti-government forces. Let's talk about it. When UNAMA has a report, why don't we talk about this pro and it legitimizes the whole war. So when we say red lines are civilian casualties. Let's have an inclusive peace where these red lines are not negotiated, but let's have them, as Minister Zaman said, what are the post solutions that you have for peace? For me, post solution is, if Taliban want to come to the table as a spoiled son, I would ask them to come in. Yeah, you're the spoiled son, it's okay, come in. But you should come in with your own religious limited power. We can give you ministries, but you don't have to impose or change our constitution. That is our honor. And you don't get to destroy or dishonor us. That's not possible. Thank you, everyone.
About all the points, and finally we had to announce one winner. So all the candidates were very impressive, but since this is the rule of the program that we should have one person winner, so the 2019's Afghan Youth Representative to the United Nations winner is, she's a female, and she is Aisha Khurram. Congratulations to Aisha.
Congratulations.
But congratulations also to the Ahmad Rashid and also to Pashtana Durrani. As Sophia was saying, it was a very difficult decision. You know, we really had to struggle to come to a decision, and for that reason, I like to congratulate the Afghan youth that you have such wonderful representatives who can shoulder the future of Afghanistan. And you know, not many countries are blessed with vigorous, capable youth who are active, who are motivated to ensure that the country will have a bright and dignified future for the people and the country. And I expect all of you to, and I really wish all of you to take on this very important responsibility. And I have learned from Sophia that there had been many candidates who did not make it to the final stage, but who were excellent. So I really hope that the Afghanistan will really sort of benefit from the youth. This is a very young country. You know that I think the population under 25 is more than 50%. I can't remember the exact figure, but it is a very young country. And the young country has a future. Japan was also a young country when we had the major restoration and began modernization. And then people in the government, people who took on the business, who took on the responsibilities were young people, and they grew. And they really shouldered the changes in the society. But at the same time, I have to ask, maybe warn you, that youth is a privilege, but it is also a place for you to learn. More room for learning from the people who are more experienced. The dynamism and energy comes from youth, but the society is old, historic and traditional. And I think one has to be very much aware that the respect for history is paramount. If you stop respecting history, then you will actually deny the future. And I hope that the young people, particularly the leaders, will understand this. And I have to really thank the Afghan for Progressive Thinking for starting this. Last year, I was also privileged to be a judge, and it was a really remarkable experience, and I was very impressed with the people who came. But this year also, I was very much blessed with this wonderful experience again. And I thank the Ambassador Peter Prugel, the German embassy, for supporting this event, and also, probably she's gone, but the Embassy of Holland for supporting last year. And the support from the government, as represented by Deputy Foreign Minister Zaman, is extremely important. We look forward to, Alicia, you're coming to the United Nations and deliver a message representing the youth. And that will enlighten the members of either the Security Council or General Assembly. They'll be listening to you. They want to know the honest voice of you, profound, thoughtful voice from you. And I'm certain that you shall be able to do that. So with that, and with a great expectation and hope for the Afghanistan, because of the youth, I want to close my greeting. And thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. Thank you.